Hi empaths, welcome back to my safe space and back to Journey Through the Tarot. This series is based on Dirty and Divine by Alice B. Grist. Her transformative journey through Tarot. She spent a day with each card. I'm spending a week. And the information, a lot of the history and symbolism and divination is from Robert M. Place. His book, one of my teachers, his book, The Tarot History, Symbolism, and Divination. And I realized this video is posted a couple days late. Getting out of the Hermit week was very challenging for me because, well, inertia. In the human design system, if you know your chart, I'm 6'2", which is role model Hermit. And I thought this week would be a breeze because I've had so much time as a Hermit, but it wasn't. So we're talking about this week with the Hermit. I'm interested to know what your week was like, and then we're going to introduce the Wheel of Fortune. So, like I said, I'm in the human design system. I am Hermit, and learning all about the symbolism and the divination was very interesting that it overlapped with Christmas. And it was, like I said, it was really challenging for me to shift out of it. I felt like my physical and mental health took a bit of a hit this week. And I went back to kind of living in my head, which I did a lot for most of my life. It really reminded me of the solitude and the loneliness that came along with it from my childhood, where I did a lot of dissociating and fantasizing about the future, and similar to what the Hermit's doing in this card, like just trusting that the future will be better, and so that was very interesting. Yeah, also known as premature ascension, right? Using your spiritual journey or spiritual information or belief system or religion, whatever it is, to bypass your experience in the material world, which was really interesting. I also have a Pisces midheaven in my natal chart, and I'm currently in my hometown, so revisiting that for the past couple of years as I come back here for healing has also been challenging to shift out of. I've had a lot of vivid dreams this week, and in a lot of them I was much more embodied than I am in waking life. I was really in touch with my body's needs, and even brought emotional closure to a couple of entangleships, I call them, past romantic entanglements through these dreams. And that was very interesting this week, right? Because working with the Hermit energy is about self-reflection and healing, introspection, going inside, and dream work can really be involved in that. That's definitely something that came up. I also saw a meme on Instagram that was really on point with what this past week and a couple of days actually were like for me, and I sent it to my friend, I think, and it read, "You're sexual, you're soulful, you're emotional, you're spiritual, you're magic, you're beautiful. You're both of the light and of the dark. You're human. Don't deny any aspects of who you are. A healthy soul is a whole soul." And that's really what the journey through the Tarot is all about, right? We learned that the star here in the Hermit's lantern is the two downward pointing triangle and the upward pointing triangles combined, symbolizing masculine and feminine energies, combining for wholeness. So journey into wholeness through introspection. And then I was talking to my best friend who's actively on this journey as well. And this past week during Christmas week, he was informed by his mom that she's actually dating somebody. And that was huge because it's the first time she's ever done so in his whole lifetime. And like, she's never been with anybody. She's been alone. And she really does embody that masculine, feminine essence. Like, she took on both roles. So, and then he felt almost like he had permission, or he was compelled to share his goals for a relationship, and felt more comfortable doing so, and felt like he faced less judgment. And it was very freeing for him. Also, he's doing a book journey of Calling in the One, which is a vlog journey. I did a blog journey on my Instagram, urban_empath, around that, and a couple of years ago, and he went through part of it with me, and he decided it's time for him to do the whole journey. So he's really being informed and influenced by that journey as well. And it's really an introspective, self-reflective experience, overall healing, right? Internally, to prepare you for partnership. It's very, very healing and immersive. All the exercises, there's a daily write up and exercise, and it is a journey in self-healing, self-reflection. So he's really being informed by that journey. One morning this week, I was still, in between waking and sleeping, and in a meditative state. And I had info come in about the hermit, regarding the hermit. I had the experience of feeling less than others most of my life, for various reasons, a lot of wounding and ancestral trauma that I was healing. So I tried to grasp for anything that would make me superior in any way, or better, or, like I thought, oh, I'm a better singer than most people that I know. So I tried to use that to feel better. Went on a spiritual journey, right? To feel more spiritual than other people, right? I think we do that as part of that journey to empowerment when we don't really understand. It's like the pendulum swing where we overcompensate, but it leads to the same issue, right? It leads to the same problem. So I try to grasp for anything that would make me superior in any way, like spiritually, intellectually, taking the high road, being the better friend, whatever made me feel better in my own mind. But that doesn't rectify the initial issue of belonging. And it still gives a lonely, separated feeling, right? So it's this still an inner separation. And then what came in during that meditative state was getting to a state of acceptance and authenticity promotes inner connection, allowing you to be with other imperfect humans without all of the pretense, right? Which is what the spiritual journey is really about, is authenticity, accepting yourself, accepting your flaws, accepting that you're human, and therefore being able to accept others as they are as well. And the hermit is about going within to discover the wisdom internally, right? The wisdom within. Part of what we learned about the hermit is we're constantly primed to look outside of ourselves, right? We're constantly taught that information is outside of ourselves and we learn it, right? Or someone else will guide us. We need to look outside of ourselves to be rescued, or whatever it is, right? To be saved. And the lesson of the hermit is there's wisdom internally that we can access and look to. And also, when we learned about the history of the hermit, we learned that he's really following the anima mundi, which is this connective force, right? That connects all people, this vital life force that really connects all things, all people. And that's what he's chasing and searching for. And we find that it's an inward journey, right? It's actually, we need that interconnectedness. That interconnectedness leads to connection outside of us as well, authentically, right? Which is why we're on this journey in the first place. Which is why what my initial intention was and still is that if we integrate these aspects, right, because we are a bunch of moving parts and we're using these tarot cards as archetypes. We're learning the symbolism to be better readers, perhaps, as well, but working with them in this immersion, this experiential exercise, helps us integrate some of that, right? So that we integrate the shadow aspects of ourselves. Even if we deem them positive qualities, they can still be in our shadow, right? It might be something we admire outside of us. Like the hermit is chasing this light. And really, it's about this inward journey in solitude. So that authentic spiritual path is about authenticity. And the more integrated we can become, the more whole we feel, the more connection we have inside, the less fragmented we are, right? I'm pushing this out because I can't own it in myself for whatever reason, right? I believe I'm flawed, or I believe I'm incomplete, or I believe whatever it is. We're leading into wholeness here as we integrate these fragments and reflect on what is it that we fragmented? What is it that we aren't owning, right? Even if it's a positive quality, that makes us susceptible to admiring it in somebody else without owning it in ourselves, right? Which might make us more susceptible to idolizing, right? Thinking someone else's guidance is better than ours and being completely out of touch with our own. I want this process to be empowering in knowing that we all have connection, right? We all have guidance. We all have this inner guidance system, inner compass that may need recalibration because we've been wounded or fragmented or whatever, but it's there and we can get more in tune with it, right? And that's what this process is about. We celebrated Christmas in the Hermit Week, which was really illuminating because the hermit can represent a spiritual mentor that comes to raise your vibration and enhance your consciousness, teaching you to find the answers within you, right? Like we just said, Jesus came to teach us that we're all connected to God and have a personal relationship to this higher power. In part, that was his purpose here, right? To teach us that we don't need to go through a third party. We have this personal connection. And that's part of what the hermit is leading us into, right? What the hermit is teaching us. Also, this week was a lot of rest and solitude. I was really tired. I think I mentioned last video in this series that I'm going through a bit of a health issue, and it's been a little bit trying. Part of it is fatigue and but I feel hopeful. I have a doctor's appointment tomorrow, so upon posting this video, if you're watching it right away, I'll probably be at that doctor's appointment. But way to bring in the new year, right? Getting your physical body and health in order. It's been a long time coming for me, so I finally have answers, and that feels really good. I spent most of Christmas Day alone because I was sick. That's what I meant in the beginning when I said like health, physical and mental health issues like came to the surface this week. And when I finally did get to my parents' house, it was the togetherness that was most important to me. More than the presents, right? More than any of the traditions. It was just really being with them and spending time with family. And that's also what the hermit is about rebelling against materialism and consumerism and going against society in that way. So while the Christmas season can can be about gift giving and, you know, buying stuff and giving physical presents, it was really the physical presence that was the most meaningful for me and what brought me the most joy and contentment and fulfillment. And I think that's true in life in general. I don't think the key to happiness is accumulation of things or even money. Of course, we need it for survival because that's how society's set up. But I had a lot of resistance around that. I was, you know, this week I was just like kind of feeling enslaved by that. And suffering a little bit over it. Like that was something that brought some suffering for me as I thought about that in my mind. Brought up a lot of resistance and resentment, and because it, you know, as you lose vitality or your physical health and well-being, you have less of a capacity to earn income. And that's what I've been working with one of my mentors, in business alchemy. I'm in this business alchemy program. I've been working with my mentor around, I don't want to exchange vitality for money anymore. It's just, first of all, it's not working out for me because I don't have a lot of vitality right now. And it's just not a fair exchange. It's never been for me. I mean, it's engages all of my wounding about overgiving, and the work I do with clients is really fulfilling for me, and I find that it nourishes me. It's something that doesn't take a lot out of me. I do feel like it's a fair exchange. But any sort of day job or whatever, never. It's never a fair exchange. So just grappling with that this week. And really, like I said, just really being so far back in my head, not even, like, just feeling so dissociated. Like even now, I just feel really out of it, like really not all there, not all together. So I feel like there's something I have to face, but I'm not quite sure what it is yet. And perhaps as we move into the Wheel of Fortune and I go to the doctor tomorrow, that will come to the surface, because it's right there. I can feel it. So that was my week with the Hermit. It, you know, definitely inertia, you know, it's very, I'm still like in it. I'm having trouble like getting out of it. But like I said, in human design, that's just, and I've had lifetimes as a hermit, you know? So coming out of that has been challenging. I really thought it would be a breeze. I thought it would be so easy, but it was almost like a dark hole I fell into and I'm struggling getting out of. So, I'll probably watch this back and be like, wow, yeah, obviously not subtle at all. But, so I'm curious about your week with the Hermit. Again, I apologize that this video is late. As I said, I kind of fell into the hole of the Hermit, fell into the inertia of it and couldn't really move out of it. But I look forward to better days. Moving right along to the Wheel of Fortune. I'm very excited to get out of the Hermit. I'm done. Like I've had enough time with this. But the Wheel of Fortune took a lot of research. It's a longer chapter in Robert's book. Anyway, so that was the Hermit. Thanks for the lessons, Hermit. Moving right along. Moving into the Wheel of Fortune. Ready for a change here. And we're working with, I feel like I just messed this all up, working with the Rider Tarot deck, which includes the Waite-Smith symbolism, right? And those are available in my Amazon store, which I'll link in the description here if you want to purchase any of this stuff. It'll be in the Journey Through the Tarot idea list. So getting into the Wheel of Fortune, let's start with the history. So the virtue and contemplation of the hermit has brought him to a pinnacle of insight. And from this hard-won perspective, he may now view the inner workings of life and learn what fortune or fate has planned for his future. What he sees is the suffering and mortality that is the fate of every human. As a mystic, it is his challenge to conquer fortune and go beyond death to find the immortality of the soul. But he is not yet strong enough, and for now, he must humbly submit to the higher trump. So, the high meaning he now has to submit to the Wheel of Fortune, which is fate. In ancient Greece, there were several goddesses associated with fortune and fate. Chief among them were Tyche, the goddess of good fortune, and the chance aspect of fate, and Nemesis, the goddess of divine punishment. They seem to be the models for the personifications of good fortune and bad fortune that we saw in the frontispiece of Fanti's Trionfi di Fortuna. In ancient art, Tyche's symbols were the rudder with which she steered men's lives, the horn of plenty representing good fortune, and a globe. Each city was believed to have its individual Tyche who protected the city. Nemesis's symbols were a griffin, a lash, scales, and a wheel. Another goddess associated with fortune was Necessity, who was also connected with the globe and the wheel of the cosmos. All of these goddesses were combined to form the Roman Fortuna. As we saw in Plato's myth of the afterlife and soul's journey toward reincarnation that he included in the Republic, Necessity Fortuna's wheel is actually the spindle of the cosmos that sits in her lap. In chapter 3, we learned that in the ancient world, it was believed that Earth was situated in the center of the cosmos, and that the 7 celestial bodies that could be observed with the naked eye to travel in paths that were independent from the background of stars were believed to orbit Earth. These were the 7 ancient planets: the Moon, Mercury, Venus, the Sun, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. Each planet was believed to move on a separate sphere, and each sphere was slightly higher above Earth than the last, forming a ladder between the heavens and Earth. As the soul enters the cosmos in Plato's myth and descends the ladder of the planets to incarnation on Earth, she or he is clothed in a body and becomes subject to fate and mortality. To stress the point that the physical world is the realm of fate and death, Plato placed Necessity's daughters, the 3 fates, around her. The fates seemed to be engaged in the craft of spinning thread, but each thread that they produced symbolized a mortal life. The first sister, Lachesis, who represents the past and the beginning of life, spins the thread. Her sister, Clotho, who represents the present and the span of life, draws and measures the thread. And Atropos, who represents the future and the end of life, cuts the thread. During late antiquity and the Middle Ages, an icon of Fortuna developed in which the cosmos was symbolized as an 8-spoked wheel. Although there were some examples with 4 or 6 spokes, and the goddess Fortuna was depicted standing in the center. One of the oldest references to this image can be found in The Consolation of Philosophy by Boethius, written in 524. In this text, Boethius attributes the following quote to Fortuna: "I turn about my wheel with speed, and take pleasure to turn things upside down. Ascend if thou wilt, but with this condition, that thou thinkest it not an injury to descend when the course of my sport requireth." The illustrations of Fortuna's wheel included figures of 4 men ascending and descending the wheel, as described by Boethius. Although Fortuna's daughters, the Fates, were not included in this icon, these male figures represented the aspects of life over which the Fates had dominion. This is the image that was painted on the Visconti Sforza Wheel of Fortune card, our oldest example of this trump. On the Visconti Sforza card discussed in chapter 3 of this book, Fortuna stands blindfolded, symbolizing her blindness to reason. In the center of her wheel, surrounded by 4 male figures. The man on the left climbs the wheel. He is sprouting ass's ears, and an inscription on a ribbon issuing from his mouth can be translated as, "I will reign." The ascending man represents the past and the beginning of life, which is ruled by Lachesis. On top of the wheel, a man sits holding a mace and an orb. He is crowned with full-grown ass's ears and declares, "I do reign." This man represents the present, which is ruled by Clotho. Descending the wheel head first, a man with an ass's tail but no ears bemoans, "I have reigned." He represents the future and the end of life, which is ruled by Atropos. Finally, at the bottom, a crawling man simply says, "I am without reign." This man represents the state of death, which is beyond life and the rule of the fates. The inclusion of the 4th figure suggests that death is yet another phase in the movement of the wheel, and it is a short step to picturing the cycle continuing to rebirth and the process being repeated for another turn of the wheel. As we learned in chapter 3, reincarnation was an important part of the philosophy of Plato and the Hellenistic Neoplatonists. The views of Neoplatonists influenced early Christians. Some Christian Gnostics are known to have believed in reincarnation, and there is controversy on whether or not other early Christians believed in reincarnation. In the year 553, a council called by the Byzantine Emperor Justinian declared that belief in reincarnation heretical. The icon of Fortuna's wheel was retained, however, possibly because the church identified with its moralistic message. Although the suggestion of reincarnation in the symbol seems obvious, the medieval church would not have thought of it as representing reincarnation. And the official interpretation of the symbol at the beginning of the 15th century, when it was included in the tarot, would have been the same. Yet evidence suggests that there were some who would still have recognized the reference to reincarnation in this symbol in the 15th century. The belief in reincarnation was reintroduced to the West by Sufis and Kabbalists in Spain in the 12th and 13th centuries, and was also part of the beliefs of the heretical Christian sect known as Cathars in the same centuries. Cathars were ruthlessly destroyed by the church in the 13th century, but through their cultural influence, some of their ideas lived on. For whatever reason, the church found it necessary to restate that Christians did not believe in the reincarnation of the soul at the Council of Lyons in 1274, and again at the Council of Florence in 1438 through 1445. In the 1460s, when Ficino translated Plato into Latin, many scholars came to the realization for the first time that this great ancient philosopher who extolled the virtues and the value of the soul also believed in reincarnation. In his writings, Ficino at times seemed to embrace the belief in reincarnation himself, and yet at other times he expresses the more orthodox Christian view that there is only one incarnation of the soul. In the Italian woodcut decks from the end of the 15th century and the beginning of the 16th, Fortuna's wheel is depicted in essentially the same manner as in the Visconti Sforza deck, except Fortune is now absent. The statements of the 4 men have been abbreviated. The man ascending has an ass's head, and the man at the top of the wheel has been totally transformed into an ass. In the Marseille Wheel of Fortune, the simplification of the image and the transformation of the figures into animals has been carried further. In the Tarot of the Marseille, the wheel supports 3 foolish creatures that are chasing each other's tails around the rim of a 6-spoked wheel. They are 3 monkeys, symbols of human folly. The one on the right, wearing donkey's ears, is ascending the wheel in a foolish desire to ape the monkey on top. The one on top rules the day with his crown, his sword, and his cape flaring like a pair of wings. The third monkey demonstrates that what goes up must come down by plunging head first with a forlorn look on his face. These 3 monkeys are related to the 3 fates in that they represent the past, the present, and the future, but the 4th figure representing death has been removed. Perhaps this edit was intended to remove the suggestion of reincarnation, or perhaps it was only the result of an illustrator's desire to simplify the image. Equivalent figures relating to the four men depicted on the Visconti Sforza Wheel of Fortune are, however, included on the four trumps that depict male figures and surround the Wheel of Fortune in the Marseille order, 2 figures before the Wheel of Fortune and 2 after. The chariot, the first, is a young man looking forward to destiny and heading up the wheel. The hermit has achieved the top position through his age or merit. The hanged man, who appears after the Wheel of Fortune, is heading down head first, and death, the corpse, represents the figure that is missing from the bottom of the wheel. With or without the suggestion of reincarnation, the Wheel of Fortune is a symbol of time and mortality. It represents the foolishness of chasing after worldly riches in an impermanent world. It is a prudent vision that warns us that the only treasure that lasts is the treasure stored in the soul. And this is gained by virtue, not by luck. This is why the image was valued by the church and the suggestion of reincarnation ignored. And we have an image of the Wheel of Fortune from an Italian woodcut tarot deck, an earlier incarnation of the Wheel of Fortune. So let's get into the Waite-Smith symbolism. How it's depicted here. So that was the history, right? Some of the first incarnations, some of the backstory of the meaning intended behind the Wheel of Fortune. And then with the Waite-Smith symbolism, this image is strongly influenced by Levi. The letters on the rim of the wheel may read rota, R-O-T-A, Latin for wheel, when read from the bottom, and tarot, T-A-R-O, when read from the top. Right? Can you see that? The letters on the wheel. Between the Latin letters are the 4 Hebrew letters that spell the name of God. The tetragrammation, Levi calls it the Wheel of Ezekiel, which explains the inclusion of the 4 living creatures in the corners. This detail turns the image into a quincunx, which is an arrangement of 5 objects with 4 at the top, 4 at the corners of a square or rectangle, and the 5th at its center, related to the world. The alchemical symbols on the crossbars of the inner circle are proceeding from clockwise to the top. Mercury, sulfur, solution, and salt. These can be translated as soul and spirit in combination with the body. Those alchemical symbols in the middle of the wheel there. The Marseille monkeys have been transformed into Hellenized Egyptian deities. The human figure with the head of a jackal is Hermanubis, a combination of Hermes and Anubis. He is the guide of the soul and represents the good. The snake is Typhon. The Greek name for Set, who is the evil brother of Osiris. The Sphinx on top represents wisdom and equilibrium. The Waite-Smith wheel represents the forces of change in the world. It is like the philosopher Hegel's dialectical process composed of a thesis, an antithesis, and a synthesis. The world of time and impermanence is seen here as permeated by the spirit and as the spirit at work. So if this card comes up in divination, what might it mean? Let's get into the divination of the Wheel of Fortune and what might be indicated in the week ahead. The Wheel of Fortune represents change, the awareness of change and good fortune. The good God is rising and the evil God descending. Right? So we can see here, good luck, karmic relationships flying off and going into a better time. 10 equals completion, as this is the 10th card. Fate, destiny balancing things out, forward movement, end of delays, change for the better. Destiny, fortune, success, luck, felicity. And then Alice B. Grist talks about her intuitive knowledge of the Wheel of Fortune. It's serendipity and synchronicity. It is the curves that keep us on our toes. Just when we think we understand the pattern of life, the Wheel of Fortune turns and who knows what calamity or calm may arise. The last time I pulled this card, Alice says, I was on holiday. I arrived in my hotel room and drew back the curtain. Right outside my hotel window, there happened to be a huge Ferris wheel. The Wheel of Fortune, above all else, has a wicked sense of humor. You may choose to ride it laughing or bemoan its spins. The wheel is a gamble. We have no say over its course. The only influence we have is over our reaction to the wheel as it turns. Know that deep down, the hoops, loops, and spins of life are all but a game. The wheel is urging you to see beyond the nature of fear and to instead root in reality. Yes, that reality contains huge uncertainty, but this is exciting. With the unknown comes so much expectation, hope, desire, and oftentimes fulfillment. Life on this planet is so full of difficulty, and yet many of us smile through the tears. Many of us take these tears and turn them into foundations. Whatever life is throwing to you right now can be embraced with a whole heart. Step off the insipid hamster wheel of dark thoughts and instead imagine yourself to be atop a beautiful and ornate Ferris wheel, content in your soul and eagerly awaiting the next miraculous turn. That's what Alice writes about it. And then also a change in station, position, or fortune, such as the rich becoming poor or the poor becoming rich, changes, opportunities, luck, instead of lack. Luck, destiny, winning, chance. Wheel of karma, what goes around comes around. Be a kind and loving person to others, and they'll be kind and loving to you. Be nasty and mean, and you will get nasty and mean turning back your way. The Wheel of Fortune card asks you to be optimistic and have faith that the universe will take care of your situation in the best way possible. Meditation and visualization can reinforce your intention to bring increased abundance, good fortune, and prosperity to you. Your life is about to turn in more positive directions if you are willing to grow and expand. Keep your mind open to all kinds of synchronicities and signs from the universe. The magic of fate and destiny is behind you and miracles are happening. Be open to the help of others, as guidance from both the physical and spiritual realms is supporting you along your journey. Relish all support right now and call on help anytime you need it. And trust that you're going to be supported. That's what we're being called to do right now with the wheel. The Wheel of Fortune. It's calling on us to trust. So that's the introduction to the Wheel of Fortune. So we're going to end with some sound, right? To integrate the lessons that we learned from the Hermit this week. For some of us, it might have been very easy to navigate. Some of us are digging ourselves out of a dark hole, right? That can be the case. And we're calling in the synchronicities and signs and support, change of fate of the Wheel of Fortune. So go ahead and recline, lean back, get in touch with your breath. We're going to use some sound to further integrate the Hermit week and to send our intentions out to call in synchronicities and experiences with the Wheel of Fortune through the vibration of this frosted crystal singing bowl, allowing it to go out far and wide to bring and letting go, right? So it goes far and wide, bringing those things back around to us, okay? So go ahead and get in touch with your breath. Close your eyes. Good. Coming back to the room. So I hope you have a beautiful week with the Wheel of Fortune card. Thank you for liking the video so I know you're following along. And comment with your experience if you feel comfortable doing so. I'd love to know how you're doing with these cards. And if you're finding the history and the divination and symbolism and all of that interesting, I find it fascinating. It's like an art history, right? And like cultural religion history, right? It's all combined here. And then when the occult took over, we look at the Waite Smith symbolism. It's just very interesting to me. I hope you're finding that interesting as well. Thank you for subscribing to the channel. And again, if you need any of these items, they're in my Amazon store, which is in the description of this video. If you would like a personal reading or session, there's a link in the description for that as well as other social media platforms to connect on. All right. I'm wishing you a beautiful week with the Wheel of Fortune card. May all of your kindness and support as a friend come back to you tenfold. I'll see you in the next video. Bye, Empath.